Welcome back to the Bonsai Builders podcast. I'm your host, Addison. One of the greatest things about this art form is the people that it brings together. You can travel anywhere in the world, walk into an exhibition, and instantly find common ground with complete strangers. That's exactly how I met today's guest. Scott and I connected at a bonsai exhibition, and we immediately hit it off. Scott traveled all the way from New Zealand, which kind of wowed me at the time. By day, he's a highly skilled professional body piercer, but his other obsession is bonsai. So today we're going to talk about his journey, what the bonsai scene looks like down in New Zealand, and the kind of surprising crossover of tree species that thrive in both his backyard and mine here in the Bay Area. So Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Addison. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, I think we originally met at the first Pacific Bonsai Expo. Is that correct? Or that's the
My memory has it. I think it was their first one, maybe at the Mirai opening party.
Yeah, I think so. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it was really great. It was kind of like it being a kid at Christmas. Like, whoa, because you knew you could turn it any direction and knew your enthusiasm would be met with equal or greater enthusiasm, and it was just such a fun time.
Yeah, I met Brock at that meetup as well, and now still really good friends with him. So it's been fun. That was a good meetup, a good experience. That first Pacific Bonsai Expo. So
yes, same with Brock. Yeah, I stay in touch with him.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So let's start with the kind of origin story for you. I don't know that I know a ton about how you kind of found bonsai and like what drives you. So do you want to kind of give us a high level overview of your kind of what got you into bonsai and then your kind of journey so far in bonsai?
I guess because when I was in the United States, although I was aware of it, I wasn't participating with bonsai at any level. But after being in New Zealand for about a year, I got really deterred with the weather because my hobby then was freestyle BMX bikes. I used to ride flatland professionally in my late teens and early 20s before I got into body piercing. And a lot of that time on the bike, you're on one wheel, and with the heavy winds, it's just not ideal, and it's really became stressful, and I wasn't making the progress that I anticipated. And my Kiwi partner, Esther, was like, hey, you've always been into plants. And I was like, and we have a whole bunch of plants indoors. She's like, why don't you look into bonsai? And that was the beginning.
Oh, no way. Okay. So it wasn't even something that was kind of rattling around in your brain originally. It was your partner that had some exposure to it and recommended it.
Yeah. In most recent reflection, I'm starting to think that the seed might have been planted when I was in my early teens living in northwestern Indiana. Our high school went on a field trip to Frank Lloyd Wright's first home on the south side of Chicago. And being an architect that was very influenced by the Japanese aesthetic, it was just magical. It was like anything else that I'd ever seen, and it just had the right balance of character and creativity. Nothing looked boring or overdeveloped. And I remember seeing his collection that was on display of Japanese block prints. And that kind of stuck in my head. And from that moment on, I just had been introduced to a new appreciation for the Japanese aesthetic, and something that's always lingered in the background. But with bonsai, not that I'm Japanese, of course, but it's giving me an opportunity to learn more and explore what they've established over hundreds of years. Yeah.
Very cool. So you grew up in the United States and then you moved to New Zealand at some point. I thought I remembered that you had flown to the PBE from New Zealand. So were you already living in New Zealand at that point whenever you went to the first Pacific Bonsai Expo? Or
Yes.
When did you move to New Zealand?
I moved to New Zealand in 2008.
Okay.
And it was probably like, I don't accumulate my time as a bonsai person like from a stick in a pot kind of thing, but it was probably like right around 2010 I started collecting sticks and pots. And then just like any hobbyist, the more time you put into it, the more books we read, and then we look out to the greater community and realize there's an entirely new set of vocabulary and tools and professionals. It was a lot like me when I first learned body piercing. I had a 18-month apprenticeship that was very vigorous. But my mentor said, now that your apprenticeship's finished, go find other professionals and tease out who you're going to be as a body piercer.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So what so you were very deep into bonsai at the point that you were going to the Pacific Bonsai Expo, and was that the first time that you traveled to the US specifically for an exhibition, or had you been to like nationals or something like that before, or?
It was the first show that I'd intentionally traveled to in 1991 or 1992. I traveled from Chicago to Denver for a lady that I was kind of seeing long distance, and her father and her were attending the Rocky Mountain Bonsai Society show in Denver. I was unfortunately really there for her, and I saw trees, but I didn't really put the time into appreciating them then.
Yeah, that's funny that but it still is like a latent memory now. It's like, oh, I did actually have some interface with bonsai
Yeah,
before I was really into it. It's
like
cool.
now I'm curious who was there,
Yeah,
other
right.
than the three of us.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny to think since it's such a small community, the kind of staples of the Rocky Mountain Bonsai Society were probably there, right? I wanted to ask you a little bit about, can you explain what body piercing is? And like, I'm also very curious, you mentioned an apprenticeship. I'm kind of curious about how that apprenticeship was structured as well and how it compares to like what we hear about a Japanese apprenticeship in bonsai.
At first, I thought it might be a challenging comparison, but after just like thinking about it for a little while, there's some very great parallels. Like Kim, my mentor, offered me a syllabus, and she said this will be anywhere from 18 to 48 months, depending on how well you progress. She required me in the first year to have university level physiology and anatomy courses. So I had some credentials, not really but for body piercers, you can't get a bachelor's or a master's degree. So we were constantly searching for some validity based on our skill building. And Kim was really great, not a natural born teacher, but she could pick up on my weaknesses and really help me pivot into them. And gosh, in 1993, I've been running with this phrase in my head that failure is the best teacher. And any time in my apprenticeship that I had a suboptimal result with what I was doing for my client, when I was done, I would journal as much as I could to get the failure onto paper and just spend time with that failure over the couple weeks and make my notes smaller and smaller into when this happens, this is your emergency kit. So over time, that really created a lot of confidence because I had these failures. They happen to most people, and Kim helped me turn them into working tools.
Mm. How did you get interested in body piercing? Like, how did you decide that that was going to be kind of a career for you?
It's really interesting. Before I met Kim, I'd went around to a couple of shops because I thought it would be a fun way to work with tattoo artists because I've been very motivated by art my entire life. And I'd only had a couple of tattoos at the time, but I felt like the camaraderie between tattoo artists were very supportive. And I got tattooed at a shop where the tattooist that did my drawing and my tattoo took the drawing around to the other artists in the shop and said, is there anything else I could do to trick this out and make it the best design ever? And I was like, wow, that's cool. And they all gave little tidbits of information, and then I got the tattoo, and it was cool because it felt like so many other people were contributing towards the growth of their coworkers, which to me at that point was rare.
Oh, that's a really cool experience. So you were just interested in tattoos for yourself, and then like that kind of transitioned into this like your close experiences with body piercers and tattooists kind of transitioned into, oh, hey, maybe this is something that I could do as well.
I, I had asked for many apprenticeships and was turned down for, I guess, a lack of having a zillion piercings. I don't feel like I've ever had many piercings, but I had given up and got into a builder's apprenticeship and wanted to become a carpenter. And then I met Kim. She was in Costa Mesa, California, and her partner moved to Chicago to be in a band. And I met her and was like, whoa, she's really cool. And I even told her I had a little crush on her because her style was so unique. And she laughed with it as much as I did. And I went to visit her at her shop one day. And this is in the early 90s when the phrase body piercing was like a head turner. And her shop was full of like 40 or 50 people, and I didn't even get to say hi to her. And I saw her at a barbecue weeks ahead, and I was like, wow, you're so busy. Like, how do you do it? And she said, it's painful. I have to answer the phone, answer all the questions, do all the paperwork, aftercare, piercing, tool processing. It's a lot. And I was like, well, what if I worked the counter for you? I could come in on a Sunday because I had Saturdays and Sundays off. And the first day that I just read off the little card and answering questions to the customers, she did like about another 40 piercings that day.
Wow.
And in a 12-hour day, she was getting pretty close between like 85 and 100 piercings, which is lightning fast, even by today's standards. And at the end of the day, she gave me $200 in tip share, which was over half of my paycheck as a builder's apprentice. And I was like, what? And she says, well, you did a lot of work. I'm going to give you my tip share. And inevitably, over time, I came back a couple more times and worked counter. And then I was like, would it be cool if like I worked here full time? And she's like, but don't you want to be a builder? And I was like, this is way more fun. Like to see people experience instant gratification. Like they put a goal in front of them that may be a little nerve wracking. Like, can I do it? And Kim did such a great job of coaching him through it. And then they come out of the piercing room with a giant smile. And we're like, yeah, it was creating a lot of enthusiasm in that work environment where sometimes builders, not all of them, were like, we made it through today. And like,
Yeah.
that's it. See you tomorrow. Some of them were really cool builders, but few and far between. And then that turned into an offer for an apprenticeship. So I
Awesome.
left my building apprenticeship in construction for a body piercing apprenticeship.
Super cool. So from what you've told me so far of body piercing, yeah, I'm wondering what kind of parallels there are or what kind of things that you can pull out of it that are useful for bonsai and vice versa.
Immediately, the word that comes to my head is lines. When I feel like body piercing has excellent, way above average placement, it's making someone's curves work for them. Like for an eyebrow, it has that radial curve, so you'd want the piece of jewelry to orient, like to accentuate these curves. And with bonsai, we always looking for lines that have the most character. Sometimes we could work with depth of field, and with jewelry, it gives me a lot of different tools to create depth of field. And like there's even some people that have gotten cool ear piercings where there's multiple piercings where I've been able to create a vanishing point with like 6 small pieces of jewelry. And yeah, as one gets more experience with something, our vision changes and we start to look at things differently. And yeah, I feel like those lines and a lot of things like that are crossover too. I have stretched earlobes and took me over 10 years to get them to the size they are. So I could really appreciate the tree speed of bonsai because some people want to go like instant tree. And as we know, that doesn't really happen.
Yeah. So you're familiar with the patience it requires to create a great outcome, right? And like
Yeah.
the idea of something improving over time. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that's interesting that you called out like understanding lines as a crossover because that's something that I had struggled a lot with, like creating good lines in bonsai. And I think it was because I didn't have that. Yeah, I guess I didn't have that natural intuition from that built from doing something related, right, with my hands or with art. And so it's cool that you to think that like there are paths that can lead you to have a natural appreciation for that through, kind of separate disciplines, right? It's an interesting call out, but I think a really fascinating one. It's always cool to me to hear about like, you mentioned these concepts like depth of field and line that if you're not doing something that with an artistic component, you might never come into contact with those phrases really, right? So are there other things that like other kind of fundamental principles that you learn in body piercing that you think apply to art as it's applied to bonsai?
Like some quick ones are like hygiene's really essential. Like if I'm defoliating a putakawa that might have like a rust contamination on it. I don't take my bonsai tools to work and run them through a medical autoclave like I do our equipment at work, but I'll use isopropyl alcohol and clean those tools off before I move on to the next tree. I used to be very much, because I like shohin, into watering with liquid fertilizer all my shohin in larger containers full of the water and liquid fertilizer. But then it clicked in my head, if I've got a juniper that has some kind of fungal issue and it's submerged in there, any tree after that's going to be contaminated. So it raised my awareness to eliminate that part of the practice. So
Mm.
thinking about cross contamination, like if I bring a new tree into the collection, it's isolated for 2 weeks to give me two opportunities to treat it for any potential fungal issues.
Oh, I love that. Like the quarantine and just the hygiene process that you have
Yeah.
to adhere to when you're working with, a person and doing kind of sensitive stuff like that. I wonder, also you probably, you can't really mess up in body piercing, or if you do mess up, it could mutilate somebody or, there can be bad outcomes, right? So I'm just curious, like, is there some kind of, I don't know, attention to detail or carefulness or precision in your actual like physical hand movements that you think crosses over to
Uh,
being like making it easier to
it,
do wiring, for example, or
yeah, I think it's very much the same. I don't really utilize a lot of tools outside of a piercing needle, although some procedures require some. But having good hand-eye coordination and good hand balance, like I can't come to work caffeinated and expect shaky hands to give me good results. So I have to take good care of myself and have good sleep. But to cross over to bonsai, when I do body piercing, I keep my elbows at the side of my torso because it keeps my hands closer to where I'm working. And as we know, a thicker wire, my arm might be up higher like this to get a good crank on things. But typically, in my experience, if our fingers are strong enough, they're going to be as close to the branch as possible. And when I do that, I'm keeping my elbows in as well too, so I don't like maybe turn around and knock the tree or disrupt the very specific area I'm working in. And just like how we use hand tools as well too, like I'm in there really close like I would be with a piercing if I'm like pruning needles with shears like this, rather than just like standing back with my elbow out to the side like this, kind of chewing away at things. I'd rather take my time and look at it and go, cool, you did a good job, rather than just I did the thing or pull the
yeah,
needles out
willy
kind of thing.
nilly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can't be sloppy in your work or your customers are going to notice it. Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense. In New Zealand, like, are you getting a lot of stuff from Australia? Is Japan, I know it's still far away, but is Japanese aesthetics and teachings kind of flowing into New Zealand? Like, where do you think that the knowledge on how to do bonsai and the species that you work with, where does that kind of flow from?
I think this will be fun for the listeners to hear. It seems like our club scene in New Zealand started around 1979 or 1980, and the influence, from my understanding, was coming from Deborah and Dorothy Korshoff out of Australia. They had met a couple vacationers from New Zealand, specifically from the Hamilton Bonsai Club, and they hit it off and became friends. And then over the following years, Deborah and Dorothy would come over and do workshops and build on their friendships and work at different private collections, because people were like, well, there's no professionals in New Zealand. Let's get in there so we can learn the vocabulary, how to use the tools, and learn the skills that we need to develop bonsai in New Zealand. And so I think, from my understanding, reading through our club's history, probably the first 10 years were Australian influence from the Korchoff sisters. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing their last name correctly. I think I am. And then in '89, I remember seeing a Chinese artist that had come over, Mr. Hu, sounding like I'm saying it. I've chatted with people in the club, and he came over for the national show that was in Wellington and had done some demonstrations. And then it seemed like there was some Penjing influence being introduced, and people were quite divided, because people were like, this is a Japanese thing, and other people were like, it's a Chinese thing. And I'm like, we're not Japanese or Chinese, we're in New Zealand. So people just gravitated towards what aesthetic they appreciated. And over the years, other bonsai professionals from Australia had made it over. Bjorn made it here. Funny enough, the year before I really got active with bonsai, he came over and worked convention and did some demonstrations, and then did some private work. And as far as I know, I think it's just been the Chinese gentleman, Mr. Hu, Australia, a variety of Australians. Hugh Grant's been over several times, which has been really cool. And Samuel Thompson from Australia is coming over in 3 weeks for the Auckland Bonsai Show. So we have a close relationship with Australia, and it seems most of the people are coming in from there. So yeah, it's been from a variety of people traveling from New Zealand. A lot of people make it to England because their family's from there and come back with some stories of Peter Warren and other professionals they've met over there. But you got it. We're really isolated. So there's not dozens of us traveling internationally to go to workshops at Mirai or with Bjorn in Kyoto. There's people getting there, like people planning it, and it's really exciting to hear. But yeah, it's being so isolated, we're like really forced to create with a limited amount of like professional influence. To my knowledge, Adrian Bird, a friend of mine, is New Zealand's only professional bonsai artist, as in that's his primary job, like his only job. So he's traveling all around New Zealand 6-7 days a week for most of the year and working with clubs. And I get to see him 4 or 5 times a year with my collection. So it's been great to develop that relationship with him. And although he really appreciates Japanese aesthetic, he also appreciates all other aesthetics. Like he really likes Spanish bonsai quite a bit. And he and I are both fans of Sergio Kwan's work. And we have a lot in common that way. So we get a lot out of our time together.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, first of all, it's very interesting to hear the kind of history of bonsai in the country. That was cool information. So thank you for kind of researching or sharing that.
Yeah.
From what you described, though, like the club scene seems very healthy. Like you mentioned multiple clubs and exhibitions and things like that. What's your take on like how active and how many clubs are there in New Zealand for bonsai?
I don't have an accurate number, but I would say there are 10 or 12 clubs.
Wow.
Throughout New Zealand. The Wellington Club in the last 3 years is, and again, I don't have the numbers specific, but I feel like it's very easy to say the membership has easily doubled. So our Wellington Club is over 50 members. I was speaking with the president of the Auckland Bonsai Society yesterday, and I think they're getting really close to having 70 members in their club. And that city has 2 different clubs, like a West and an East club. Yeah. So.
Oh, that's very cool. Has anyone in California, we have kind of multiple influences from people that have gone to Japan to apprentice and then come back, or from other states have gone and then ended up in California. I'm curious, do you see that happening at all in New Zealand? Like, are there people that are kind of gearing up to do some Japanese apprenticeships, or do you think that that's still a little bit farther down the horizon?
Our friend Michael Grimmer from New Zealand was in Japan and 3 months in on an apprenticeship. And then when COVID happened, he came back to New Zealand, so he didn't get to finish. But as far as I know, I'm not aware of other people going overseas for apprenticeships. Yeah. Our dollar just isn't as strong as a lot of the countries we'd go to. So the costs are a lot more when we're making our budget. Like I like the fact that the Pacific Bonsai Expo is every 2 years because it just gives me time to save.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody time to get their trees ready for the next one and relax a little bit. I'm sure it's a lot of work for Jonas and Andrew and Eric.
Yeah.
So very interesting information on the New Zealand area. I'm curious, how similar are the tree species to what is used in Australia? Like Hugh was like really opening my mind to, the differences in the hemispheres and how there's a lot of like deciduous material. Is New Zealand similar to Australia from like a climate and like I don't know what the right word is, ecology, or like is it the same plants there or is it different?
And there's only a little bit of similarity in my experience. Like
Hmm.
both countries have beech trees and varieties that are native to those countries, and there's some crossover ones. Yeah, the like we have tea tree melaleuca here that's been imported. I'm growing a little grevillea that's a flowering Australian native, but I don't think there's a lot of crossover. Our biosecurity is really strict. To my knowledge, other than in the early 60s, there was a container that came over from South Africa with a lot of tropicals. I don't think there's been any imported trees since the 60s because biosecurity is so strict.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but whenever we had chatted at the Pacific Bonsai Expo, I remember you talking to me about like there's redwoods in New Zealand.
Yes. So there's a lot of American exotics over here. To my understanding, in the early 1900s, New Zealand had got back to a point of deforestation and reached out to other countries, and Japan sent pines, and California sent redwoods, radiatas, Monterey cypress, and radiatas are the most common tree in New Zealand, and they're not even native.
That's crazy. That's so
Yeah.
funny to me. Like the Monterey pine and the Monterey cypress
Yeah.
being, these are iconic species in the Bay Area where I live, and they're. I'm very curious to go to New Zealand one day and experience that and see like the redwoods there and stuff like that. I think that would be a lot of fun. Do you use those for bonsai? Like,
Yeah.
are there supplies of them available for using as bonsai trees?
So there's nurseries that will sell them, but the way the bonsai community is getting access to collected redwoods is the Rotorua region of New Zealand has quite a few redwoods there. And the Rotorua Bonsai Club has an agreement with the city council where they could go in once a year with a club and collect. And
Cool.
I have 5 redwoods that are from that area that were collected by other bonsai people. And I've got 2 of them are 4 feet tall, and then the other ones I've cut back and made more sumo chunky trees out of. But yeah, being an American, it's really exciting for me to have redwoods, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's
right.
just
It's an
so
iconic
fun for
species.
me. Yeah.
Are they popular amongst other New Zealanders as well, or do you think you just have a special affinity for redwood? I mean, it sounds like if the
Um,
Rotorua Club is collecting them, then there's a supply of them and people have them. But
yeah, they do. And a couple of our other friends throughout the country will become members of that club just so they could go collect. So there are redwoods in the bonsai community. The Hamilton Club puts on a really good show every year, and their club has several redwoods in it. So there's a great variety to see at that show too, which is really fun.
oh, that's so fun. And then, what kind of Japanese species influence do you have? Like, are there a lot of Japanese maples and black pine, or just
I
because there's so much restriction, I'm curious how easy it is to get those, or if they are there.
There's a lot of different Japanese maple, like a couple dozen from my understanding. And in the beginning, I thought that that's where my focus would be because I really like the colors of their leaves and that textural edge to their leaves. But I'm in an area, I think you're growing area and ours are both 10B, is it? I know they're changing,
Oof,
but
I
Jonas
might
told me
be
they're
10A
changing. But
or yeah.
yeah, 10A or 10B. So we're coastal, heavy winds getting pounded all the time. So those Japanese varieties of maple just can't make it where I'm
Doesn't
at.
do as well. Yeah, yeah.
So I grow Trident maple, and they are like fine with the wind. But to go back to Japanese, there's Japanese larch, Japanese quince, Japanese black pine, a couple of different varieties of the Japanese black pine, which is maybe my favorite.
Hmm.
They're just fun. Yeah, and vigorous. Which is funny because when I first started going to the bonsai club, they told me not to waste my time with pines because they're so slow. But I think it was maybe their substrate and care for them were very different.
Hmm. Are you allowed to import akadama into New Zealand? Like, do you get traditional Japanese soil components for your bonsai, or are you
We
using
do get
something native?
hard akadama. I did a little bit of a pivot about 3 years ago, and I'm using New Zealand red zeolite, and I did some tests with them just to see how things went, rather than like I'm switching all to red zeolite, and everything that I used them with thrived. And Adrian, my friend, that's the professional I was talking about, he's like, "You're on to something here. This is working really good."
Oh, very
And
cool.
looking into it, it seems like it like might work a little bit more efficiently on retaining micronutrients than akadama.
Hmm.
Like at
Yeah, maybe it
CEC
just has more
capacity
a
is,
higher CEC. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So, and I still haven't switched like entirely over. Like I just got another bag of akadama the other day, because I'll repot the redwoods in July, the bigger ones, and I have them in 100% akadama, and they're flourishing in that. So I don't want to. They're some of my faves, so I don't want to play the game with them and go like, I
Yeah,
tried this, and then they, yeah, reacted poorly.
that's so funny. Oh, that's
Yeah,
very interesting to hear. That's cool. Yeah,
and I guess
go ahead.
sorry, I'm excited. I guess we also have like Japanese cherry and apricot are here. Not as many as we'd like to see, and the people that have them hold on to them like the Holy Grail. But they're out and about.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I was trying to think of what New Zealand species we have here as well. I mean, there's probably multiple. The first one that like came to my mind was Corokia cotoneaster. I've seen that. Multiple people have like bonsai
Ah,
versions of
cool.
that, which is cool.
There,
Yeah.
you
Um,
guys have Pudakawa there.
Pudakawa. What's that?
So I guess I'll describe its like easy standout characters. It has red needles on it, and there's two really big ones on Alcatraz Island, and then they're throughout
Oh.
the San Francisco area. And originally, when I was chatting with a couple people in California and San Francisco, they're like, no, they couldn't possibly be New Zealand. They're Australian bottle brush. And then they look into it and they're like, no, they're Pudakawa.
Okay, I just looked at pictures of them. I've totally seen this around. I didn't realize that's what this was. I haven't seen it as a bonsai, I don't think, but yeah, cool. You got a book on it. That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
I should mail you the book. It's a really cool historic book on ecology and everything Pudakao. It's real cool.
Super cool. You know, I'm totally gonna take a picture of it the next time I walk by one because they're totally in the landscape too, in the city. I've definitely walked by that before, so I'm gonna have to take a picture next time I see it, and I'll send it to you.
They are rigorous. I was once at a bonsai workshop many years ago, and in the middle of summer, they bare rooted a Pudakawa, cut 50% of the roots off, 70 of the foliage, and planted it over a rock. And out of my lack of experience, I was like, that tree is 100% dead. And then I messaged my friend Roscoe like 2 months later, and I was like, how's it going? And he sent me a photo, and it was like a bush. It
Oh
just,
my gosh, very
yeah,
very vigorous. Wow, that's crazy.
yeah,
It's good to know. Yeah, it
yeah,
makes them good for bonsai, I guess. So
yeah.
on the topic of redwoods, I'm very curious. In the Bay Area, there's like multiple different kind of, I don't know, theses about what they should look like, right? You've got the kind of Mirai like reiterations approach. You've got kind of contrasted to that the like what we call it maybe like Peter, or I don't know, I refer to as like more Peter T style, where they're extremely dense, like lots of divisions and coming from like multiple origin points. And then like Sam Tan and I are trying kind of like an in the middle approach where like we want more density, but we still want like a good structure. So I'm curious what influences you have on the styling there, and like how are most people doing their redwoods, or is it a mix?
I personally, funny enough, am working in all three styles.
Oh, that's
Really
hilarious.
short branches that are really compact. I have a lot of longer leggy branches that are taking over the new apex and some of the taller ones to just break up the, again, to say depth of field. So everything, like I do have the ones that are really compact as well too. And I've been developing my pinching technique from chatting with Sam Tan. He's been really useful and shared some video with me. I've had a couple little video chats, and that's made a big difference in how quickly they're ramifying. And as you know, it's hilarious because like they're a full-time job, redwoods.
Yeah, they really are. I have 3 in my garden right now, and I'm like, all right, maybe this is enough. These are I want to stay on top of them, right? But yeah, I mean, it seems like for the Bay Area and for New Zealand too, it sounds like it's a great species for bonsai if it grows well in your native area, right? If obviously, if you get a lot like a harsh winter, then it's hard. It's very difficult to keep redwoods. But in these coastal areas, they grow so vigorously, but they're still a little bit like in my point of view, at least, they're a little bit underutilized, or that we haven't figured out what the meta is for the design of these trees and like how they respond to different bonsai techniques because they're not from a Japanese species, right? So
Yeah.
there isn't like this long list of like this is exactly how you do, a redwood correctly, like there is for black pine, let's say, or something like that. So I think it's a cool like frontier.
I agree. I'm wanting to graft additional branches on a redwood, and I think in the spring that will be the time that I action it for the first time. So we'll see how grafting goes with them. I imagine because of high water mobility, it will be pretty easy.
Huh. I've never seen somebody graft a redwood, so I'm very curious to see the approach you take as well as the results. Are you going to approach graft it, or are you thread grafting it? I mean, with the needles on, it's
Scion
hard
graft.
to thread. Oh, you're going to scion graft. Okay. Yeah, I'm very curious to see how that works out. Definitely keep me updated.
I've taken some cuttings over the years off the trees so I could use material from the parent tree, and I'll use them as like a scion graft. The 2 taller ones that I have, there's a couple spots where I'd really like to see branches, and the trees seem to put them everywhere except where I want them.
Are
Everywhere.
you trying to add branches to the trunk, or are you trying to add foliage into the primaries or secondaries?
Branches to the trunk.
Yeah, I've noticed that with the upright style, right, where you've got this really tall upright tree. Often, well, I mean, I think that's kind of part of why the reiteration style is very effective, right? Is because you can take things up instead of just pulling them down, right, to fill spaces where you don't have branches on the trunk. But if you're able to graft branches into those locations directly onto the trunk, then you can theoretically create the perfect branch structure on an upright, which would be very cool.
Yep.
So please, let's definitely have some kind of melding of the minds, sharing of information here over time.
For
I'd
sure.
love to kind of stay in touch as we figure out how to what's possible with the redwood species.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm just like you are. There's so many things to do, and I have a job. You have a job. Yeah.
That's the hobbyist lifestyle.
The curse of a hobbyist.
Yes, exactly. Time.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, it's not often that you find other areas that can grow redwoods as well as we can. And so it's cool to have that connection between New Zealand and the Bay Area because, in the US at least, like there's really not a lot of other places that grow redwoods or have a supply of redwoods even. So it's kind of rare in the US to have that same kind of kinship.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, and it's exciting because everybody's going to do something a little different like we were chatting. I'm trying to remember what book it was that I was reading, but at one time in human history, the book that I read said the most common tree west of the Mississippi were sequoia redwoods.
Huh.
So
Very
now,
interesting. Didn't realize that.
Yeah, and even in New Zealand, you'll drive around the North Island and sporadically go like, redwood, the other kind of redwood. And there's not a lot of them outside of Rotorua, but they're around. And I've read also here that at one point there were multiple redwoods around the country, but they like their own native timber, logged them for export. And I was just like, wow, it'd be interesting to see what like New Zealand looked like 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, before those species came in, right?
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, in the US, it's a shame that a lot of our kind of old growth forests were logged, right? And so I love that kind of like primordial forest environment. Like being able to go see those is such a treat as somebody who does bonsai and just like enjoys nature. So I guess it's probably hard in New Zealand as well, where a lot of that was cut down for boats and export and stuff like that, right? So
Yeah, multiple times. Like the neighborhood that I live in, it has been it got logged in like around 1900, 1920, and 1940. So most of the trees that are in my neighborhood are from like where the bigger trees are
okay,
from
like
like the
80, 85
1940s.
years.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
very
and they're
cool.
cool because there's like one of the largest puhutakawa that I've ever seen is in my neighbor's yard, and it's like massive. And then up in the park by our house, there's ponderosa pine and radiata pine, which are really good for studying like their branch structure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's super fun.
yeah, and that's
I
just in
wonder,
our.
do you get the same kind of excuse my inexperience with New Zealand geography, but do you get the same kind of, I go up into the mountains in California, in the Sierra Nevadas, or, other places, and I'm looking at, these gnarled trees and the, pines and junipers up in the mountains, like as inspiration for bonsai. Do you have the same kind of biomes, or do you have like an equivalent to, like in California we have, for example, these like old bristlecone pines that are 3,000-4,000 year old up in this kind of mountainous area? Do you have a similar kind of inspiration kind of point where you'll go visit, or
With one of our native trees, Kahikatea, they're the tallest tree in New Zealand. They are some really old trees up north that the nature's just knocked the tops out of them in the apex, and you can see that they've like grown new apexes multiple times. They look really gnarly, so I've been using that. I've got three of them that are like beyond a little bit beyond pre-bonsai that I've developed the crowns where I've snapped the apical branches out and brought other ones in to be the new leaders, and I'll continue to do that and maybe get them compacted one day so we've got all this deadwood at the top and a more compact tree below like I see in nature.
oh cool,
But
yeah, so that's like your
yeah,
natural inspiration design for that
yeah,
species. Oh, that's cool.
I don't have any Monterey cypress in my collection at the moment, but they're very similar. They're abundant, enormous because they grow well here, and also have got the tops snapped out of them multiple times because the wind here is ferocious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's an interesting one too. My a lot of my garden is redwoods, and I have some Monterey cypress, and they just grow like crazy in these kind of coastal environments. So, you know, if it if it isn't broken, don't fix it, right? I don't know. It's like go with the easy path, right? So, cool, very cool.
Have you noticed any Monterey cypress in the Pacific Bonsai Expo, or do you know other people that are developing them as bonsai there?
I mean, the main people that I've seen do Monterey cypress or pygmy cypress are Eric Schrader, Sam Tan, and then Ryan Neal. So, I don't see a ton of like show quality Monterey cypress in the Bay Area though. There's like two or three kind of floating around that I've seen at shows, but I don't see a lot of people investing in them as a species. And I'm curious why. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there is things
Yeah.
that are farther down the line that are difficult, or maybe people just haven't known how to use them. I think the work that Sam's been doing on them is awesome. And he's got like 20 in his garden, which is crazy. I go over there and help
A
with
couple.
those, and yeah. So it's pretty funny. But I don't see a lot of other people investing in them as heavily as Sam does. Eric has grown them traditionally. The ones that have been in the expo, for example, I think Eric grew them initially, and then the one that Sam exhibited was from Eric originally. So they do exist, and they grow really fast. But yeah, I haven't seen a ton of really good ones. The other person, there's this. I actually don't know the full history here, but a man, I think his name was Kinoshita, maybe his last name. I'm not 100% sure, but there's a lot of famous cypresses from him. Like he grew a batch of them, and they are very, very cool looking.
Yeah,
They're
I'd like
kind
to
of
see
like
more of them.
legacy trees that are kind of out there in the wild and at the bonsai garden at Lake Merritt, for example, at the public collection.
Hey, it's interesting you brought up the Lake Merritt collection. I remember reading before I visited there my first time that Kathy Shaner was the curator and director. Is she still?
No, so Kathy moved to Alabama 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So
Yeah.
she moved back to the East Coast, and she has not been the curator for a few years now. I think she was just kind of getting, she wanted to settle down a little bit, and all the travel was getting tough for her. So
Yeah.
she hasn't been back, to my knowledge, in a while. Unfortunately, I think her health has declined some. But she was the first person that I started learning with, her and Jerry Carpenter at the Bonsai Garden at Lake Merritt. But no, they've gone through a number of different curators over the last few years, and Suzanne Muller is taking over, or has taken over, as the new director, and she's doing an excellent job of kind of revitalizing the garden and helping it keep pushing forward. So
That's great. I was fortunate enough to get to see the collection that wasn't on display while I was there too. And all the zillions of pots that were underneath the off display, I was like, you have hundreds of pots here. And they're
I
like,
know
yeah,
yeah, they've got a good setup there. Well, I think a lot
yeah,
of people, whenever they're getting older, they kind of bequeath trees to the garden. So they just have like a critical mass of the top quality trees, in my opinion, in kind of the Bay Area. And I think people, because they've been run so well over a long time period, and there's a huge volunteer force, people feel comfortable kind of giving, you know, continuing their legacy via the garden, and it's a great group of folks. So.
that makes me feel really good to hear that because I think it's kind of like whether it's a delicious meal or people that are into wine or coffee. Having it for yourself is one thing, but I feel like it's more rewarding sharing it with others. And oh man, the bonsai community like never lets us down ever.
Mm. Do you have a similar kind of programs in New Zealand? Like, is there a public collection somewhere, or?
There is a smaller collection in Palmerston North. I think it's maybe 10 trees. I haven't made it to the garden there yet to view it. Our friend Greg, from my understanding, was the one to supply the trees and is doing the maintenance on them. But I think that's the only bonsai specific garden in the country.
Mm.
But there's been pipe dreams discussed about a South Pacific bonsai museum. And I've even heard some people talking about registering a charitable organization to actually move forward in that direction, but they said it sounds like it takes a long time to get a charitable organization registered.
Mm. So we've talked a lot about New Zealand. I wanted to get back to kind of close us out with hearing more about your goals in bonsai. So, your passion has clearly come through, but I'm curious, like, what's your ultimate goal in bonsai? Like, how do you orient your practice?
I see Adrian multiple times a year to continue to build on my skills, and mostly it's been centered around design strategy in the last 2.5 years. And quite often when he comes down, if he's just excited about a tree, he'll be put his elbows on. He's like, "I got this," because not all of my trees are big enough for two people to work on at the same time. But typically, he'll sometimes wire a branch and go like, "Got it." And I'm like, got it. So sometimes we're both working on separate trees at the same time. But developing design strategy, I think, is maybe the longest skill set that I've began to experience in bonsai so far. And yeah, I've got a collection that's right now it's around 55 trees, and that's from Mame, Shohin, and Chuhin. I've got maybe 4 imperial size trees. I would honestly like to get that number down to 30. As we know, the more time we have to spend on a tree, the better. And I think that's a focal goal of mine, and I hope I could get to it in the next year or two.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Paring down to like just the best.
Yep.
How do you
I'm gonna.
balance like pre-bonsai versus, you know, full like refined trees?
I, I'm trying to really get away from pre-bonsai because it's really easy to get excited about something that could happen versus something that has happened in regards to trunk development, or maybe I've saved and been able to buy, like I have the 2 of the redwoods I have, where they had great trunks, good primary branches, good secondary branches, and I was like, all it really needs is like a couple stylings and it's good to go. So yeah, I honestly still just enjoying the process. I don't have anything related to bonsai that I'm like, oh, I don't like repotting. I love repotting season. So yeah, my enthusiasm's got me sticking to my schedule and recognizing that in the future I need less trees, and that'll give me more time to work on the ones that have the most character.
Awesome. Very cool. I
I've
wonder,
fit,
is there any kind of zone envy you have? Like, is there a tree species that you wish grew really well? I mean, you talked a little bit about Japanese maple. That might be one, but any
yeah,
tree species that you wish grew well in your garden?
yeah. Last year at the Hamilton show, I got a flowering cherry that's pretty impressive. It had a lot of branches to choose from, and I was like, I knew the seller, and it was $40, and I was like, it's a good tree for $40. I was like, as soon as I saw it, I bought it, and I, at that point, had a one tree in, one tree out policy, so I knew that I had to like move a tree as soon as I got home. And then it's done okay. The wind is just like the maples. It's the leaves have had a really rough time staying in good condition. So I've already traded it to a friend and we'll pass it off in maybe September this year. He's up north, and
Mm,
so I'm trading a conifer for a flowering cherry. But
okay.
yeah, cherries, like I had apricot for a few years and it just constantly struggled. It did better than the Japanese maples. So yeah, just really the maples and like apricot and cherry. Those are the only ones that I've really liked, and that the wind is just too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not, are there really any effective kind of building strategies for wind? Like I know if it's too sunny, you can, and hot, you can put up shade cloth, right? But like, does building a really high fence, help solve
Uh,
that or,
it's
yeah.
been into some conversation with our landlady because I'm a renter,
Mm,
and really enjoying that in the sense that she's the mother of my partner's childhood best friend, and she lives next door. And the buildings have really great architecture. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna rent for the rest of my life unless magic happens. But she's got a building being built in the back part of the property now, and when it's finished, I will put up a retaining wall that she said that's fine, and then I could lead a little bit more into my little space and add some garden stones and really start to trick out the display stands.
no, that's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also in the kind of, renting phase. And so there's limited kind of changes I can do. Luckily for my location, actually is fairly protected from wind, which is nice.
Oh, that's
But
great.
yeah, if I were to move to another location, who knows, right? So I was just curious, like, are there ways to kind of mitigate that? Okay, very cool. All right, well,
Yeah.
this has been super fun. How can folks, anything you want to plug, or how can folks reach you or follow your journey?
I'm not super active on social media because there's so much cool art on it. It's tough to like put my phone down when I do that. So I've spent very little time on social media. But what I might plug, because it's fun, just like our conversation today, my friend Adrian Bird and I have a podcast that's on Spotify and YouTube called Crouching Deadwood Hidden Nabari. And we've got, um, we just recorded last week, episode 10. So we're making about one a month. He's a very busy bonsai artist and doing the editing. So I'm hoping to get more into the editing to take that weight off his shoulder this year. But yeah, they're focused on New Zealand bonsai, but we've had Jonas Dupuy on as our first guest because he'll be here in 133 days
Oh, so
for
cool.
the Wellington show, and he will be our guest judge and doing demonstrating and having fun with trees with us. So that'll
Oh,
be,
that's so fun. Yeah, I love
yeah,
the name for your guys' podcast. Such a great name. And the logo is really cool too. So
thanks.
definitely urge folks to go check that out. And yeah, Scott, thanks so much for taking the time. This has been a blast. And I learned a ton about the kind of New Zealand ecosystem. And it was really
Ah,
fun
cool.
kind of learning about your journey. I think there's a lot for folks to relate to there. So
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity, and catching up with you is really fun. And what a great way to start my Sunday. I have my first meal in a moment, and then I start working about an hour. So
awesome.
mm,
Well, thank you for getting up really early. I don't know exactly what time it is there, but thank you.
bonsai people get up early for it.
Uh,
Thank you. Have a great day, and we'll stay in touch.
yeah, awesome. I'll see you hopefully at the next PBE.
February?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. See you there.
Yeah. Awesome.